This is Brunch, Blaze, and Babble,
where we eat, elevate, and talk about
media trends from the past,
the present,
and the future
from a Black perspective.
I'm your host, Roger Turner.
And I'm your host, Alexis Bertrand.
So sit back,
spark up,
and let's get into it. Hey, Alexis.
Hey, Roger, baby.
How are you?
I'm doing all right. How you doing?
I'm fair to middling.
Fair to middling. Okay, all right. Damn, you went deep country on me on that one.
Yes, I had to, channel my ancestors.
Okay, fair to middling. You channeling them. You better channel them fair to middling.
How was your brunch?
My brunch was good, boo. Okay, we are on our 2-egg scramble with a little. I'm actually adding in an avocado. Like I'm digging that for those of you into that. So the bacon, the eggs, and the toast, and a little avocado goes a long way. I love it.
I had a good old Western omelet.
Oh, I do love a good Western omelet. They always hit when they made right.
Yeah, I had a nice little Western omelet.
Was it home or did you go to a diner?
Diner.
I know.
Diner. I'm on my. It wasn't a great diner.
No.
Because the service and the atmosphere was not great, but the food was fine.
Shout out to Jersey and New York for having excellent diners.
You know what? And that is not true all over the country.
No, it's not.
I did not realize that.
I think we have not per capita, but maybe per capita.
Well, New Jersey definitely has more diners per capita.
So the majority of them, I think they are good. I haven't. Anyway.
All right. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how high are you?
So right now, boo cakes, I'm at a 6.5 and climbing.
Okay.
And this is a little edible, so I'm working with that, seeing how that kicks in for me.
I too am on a 6. I started late.
That's fine,
but we will definitely be fine.
By the time we kick in,
it'll definitely kick in.
Yes.
Tell our brunchers what we're talking about today.
Okay, so yes. So I wanted to start this one a little differently where we talk about the topic. But if I were to say to people, do y'all remember Rachel or Rochelle Zimmerman? And they might be like, who's that? But if I said, do you remember that movie, The Craft?
Oh, I knew exactly who Rochelle was.
Right, you know who Rochelle was.
When you said Rochelle, I was like, The Craft.
But not everybody remember oh, yeah, that black chick from The Craft. Yeah, it was great. Or if I said, Tia Dalma, you might be like,
I don't remember who Tia Dalma was.
Well, her other name in the movie was Calypso.
Oh, Calypso.
Do you remember what franchise this is from?
Suicide Squad.
I know there is a Calypso in there, but I'm thinking this was from Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest.
Can I tell you, I've never seen a Pirates of the Caribbean.
Right, okay. But yes, clearly she's in there, right? There's this played by Naomi Harris, but she's playing a witch in that one as well, right? Okay, one more.
Uh-huh.
For you folks here and at home. If I said Marie Laveau.
Oh, come on now.
Now, I don't know if everybody remembers that, but if I said arguably which is the best season of American Horror Story, hands down.
It's Coven.
It's Coven, right?
It's Coven.
And oh yeah, that witch that Angela Bassett plays.
Absolutely.
So I started there because, and then there's been other prominent witches, we think about Vampire Diaries or The Witcher or even Charmed. A lot of the times the conversation's been oh, I love that movie or I love that show and remember that black girl who played da-da-da-da-da-da. Well, I feel like we are now entering an era where we're talking about, let me back up. Due to the wonderful, overwhelming positive response of Wicked, I feel like in my first time we're talking about not only the movie, but we're talking about the main character who is a black woman played by a black woman. So this is the first time that I'm really engaging in conversations with folk around Wicked and Elphaba and Cynthia.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I know exactly who she is. I know exactly who she plays versus the chick from that one. So this episode, y'all, is dedicated to all of our black witches, if you will. And it's entitled Black Magic. It's a good thing. Yeah, so highlighting the incredible impact that Wicked has had, not just for moviegoers and for viewership alone, but also how conversations have been formed around this entire production. And I'm loving hearing how people are actually knowing who Cynthia Erivo, the actress, is. They know who Elphaba is. She's no longer just the Wicked Witch of the West, that they literally are talking about her like a character and talking about those two people connected to each other. So this is a Black Magic episode, y'all.
And I can't wait to get into it. Thank you for that wonderful intro.
Yes!
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So I think it's time for us to...
Pull back the curtain. So what you got for us, Roger? Pull that bad boy back.
All right. So I wanted to talk about like the metaphor of witches in media and pop culture and storytelling.
Yes.
And one of the things that I kept coming back to were these icons of feminism and rebellion and standing up to social norm or what is expected of a woman. A lot of these are set in duality of respectability politics around feminism and power structures and deciding who is wicked, who is evil.
Right.
Every time they stand against a societal norm.
Yes.
Whether the societal norm tends to be morally right or not. If it's in opposition, this woman was considered a rebel. I don't know if you heard this a lot as a child, but I remember church folks saying, well, the Bible say rebellion is like witchcraft.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
And I was like, does it really mean that, though?
Is that really that, though?
Is that what
Mother
it really
Mabel?
Because is it rebellion against what you say, or is it a rebellion of what God really wants us to be doing?
Right. Like, I never understood. Like, love can mean all of these things, but it's almost like love could never be defiant.
Right.
In the ways that, in efforts to be just.
Right.
Or to bring about truth. Like, I always thought love had an element of defiance to it.
Absolutely. And so I think as we talk about this metaphor and as we talk about how the witch is used to help women find their own power, I want to highlight how even though we've seen this so many times for so many years and centuries in the form of a white woman, but how a Black woman actually turns that duality on white society, on that the idea of villainizing someone because they have decided to stand against you. And I think having a Black woman in the role of the witch metaphor not only turns the mirror towards society, but also turns it toward those white women that try to fulfill that role as well.
Absolutely. And I think in this particular case, we can't forget the queerness as well. I feel like it, because of how this person, Cynthia, right, how she chooses to show up in the world, it connected with all the nuances that I think needed to show up for Elphaba. But in order for us as an audience to really understand, like fully, completely understand othering in this fantastical place, in this fantastical setting, that othering has little to do with the setting. You can still feel that way. It could be sci-fi, it could be space, it could be reality. But here in this quote unquote magical place, othering is still a very real thing.
So let's talk about this magical place.
Okay, let's
talk about this magical place. So now everyone knows that the movie Wicked is based on the Broadway musical that opened in 2003. I believe it is.
Yes.
That opened in 2003. That was,
I think that's right,
based on the book from, I believe, 1996. Or 1999.
Right, I thought that the book, because I read it years ago, I think it's like 30 years old, right?
Yeah.
Or at least approaching, if it's not 30 years old already.
Yeah, so I definitely did a lot of research around Gregory Maguire, the author of Wicked, and his inspiration around writing Wicked, okay? So he wrote the book because he came from a very strict home, educator, fundamental parents. They weren't allowed to do a lot of things. They weren't allowed to watch a lot of television.
Okay.
And one of the things he could watch as a child was
The Wizard of Oz. Yeah.
And he grew up loving this, but also grew up in a time where in his childhood, the Vietnam War was happening. And so
Okay, I didn't know this. This is good.
throughout his childhood, all the way into high school, he and his peers grew up with the fear of being drafted to kill the Wicked Witch of the Viet Cong.
I see. Keep
Direct
going.
quote. And it became the beginning of direct quote. The power. It began to. I'm high, y'all. I'm sorry.
It's all right. You got this, baby. You got it.
It made him. This time period was the very first time that he started to examine the power structures of who gets to make decisions and who gets to carry out the campaigns. Started to become the substratus of his moral thinking.
Oh, I love that framework. Who gets to carry out, who gets to make the decisions around whatever, and then who gets to carry them out. Ooh,
So
y'all feeling that?
He started questioning authority around these times, okay? And so around these ages, he was around like, you know what, he started to realize, even though he loves the movie, he started to realize like, hey, you know what, the wizard was the one that lied to Dorothy. The wizard was the one that like didn't have any real way of fulfilling his promise to Dorothy if she finished out her task. And the Wicked Witch, yo, you killed her sister.
Right.
And I remember, like, I'm not I didn't grow up with no Wizard of Oz. You know what I grew up with?
The Wiz.
The Wiz, which
Yes.
is the same thing. And I remember thinking that because I was all about Eveline.
Were we all? Like, we were all fans. We should not have been fans, but
I
we were.
was all about Eveline, but maybe we should have because as I went through like the whole good and evil of the movie, I was like, but why? You know, Richard Pryor ain't even. He was over here commenting. He lied.
Just out here lying.
He out here lying. You killed this woman for no reason. Now he got what he want, and now and then Glenda talk about just click your heels
Just
3
click
times. Girl, you could have told me that
3 hours ago.
back at Munchkin Lab.
Nope. Like, there's some.
You could before I checked my happy.
You made me work through all of
halfway
this.
across Eyes.
I about died. My dog about died.
So around 1995, the Gregory Maguire was living in London during the first Gulf War. And 2 things were happening in London. There was the Gulf War, and everyone was trying to convince English people to get on board with this war and demonize the powers that be in the Middle East, and to get on board with
to villainize Middle Eastern people.
Yeah, and to get on board
How
with
apropos for now, Lord
invading
Jesus.
this sovereign country, which
Sound familiar, girl?
he started questioning himself. What does it take for me to call someone evil? Or to call someone wicked? What do I have? Am I talking about a mental failing? Is this person have a psychosis? Is this person making horrible decisions based on some other background? Why am I calling this person evil? Or do I just not understand this person?
What is it based on? What is my assessment based on what?
Right. And I'm judging this person based on their actions and not their motivations for their actions. And so he started to re-examine these questions about his morality, and he said he really wanted to write about it. And so writing what you know is the thing that you need to do. And so he was like, he had a background in children's literature. And so he started to, one day he woke up, he had this vision of Margaret Hamilton, who was the actress that played the original Wicked Witch of the West and Wizard of Oz. And he had this vision of her, and he was like, I'm going to write about her.
Wow.
And so that's how
we got
born.
there.
And so nobody was buying this book. It was fine.
I remember, yes.
It was doing all right.
Nobody was thinking about it.
Nobody's thinking about this book until Stephen Schwartz.
Okay.
Until he got a call from Stephen Schwartz, because people were talking about making this into a movie, making Wicked into a movie, and he was like, a movie but musical. But what sold him was that he's like, I heard this one line in the song, there are so few people that are comfortable with moral ambiguity. so we act like they don't exist. It's a line in one of the Wizards songs, and he was like, you get it. And so Wicked the Musical was born.
Oh, did not even know that. So here we are.
I wanted to bring up all of that because there's a lot of talk about how the new Wicked musical has become too woke. Girl, where y'all been?
Honestly, you know why? I think we get there because people don't read. And I think they don't read the source material. I'm not saying anything has to be like the source material, but this is the same kind of arguments that I see, or I think we see when we're thinking about some of these superhero products, or that like why the X-Men presented this way, or why is it other things presented this way, when literally the original authors, the people who thought about conceptually what they want, the stories they wanted to tell, it was always there. It was always embedded. And it's interesting how, and I get that people can have different entry points around all of this, but to look at something like the Wicked musical and then just co-opt it and label it as something that's woke, it's like, well, first of all, you don't know what woke means. I'm sure you haven't read up on that. But had you just read the book,
right,
or even understood, like you said, I didn't read the book, but just how you just shared with us how the author got to the book, that should kind of tell you.
That should have told you what
all you needed to know.
All you needed to know. So, I wanted. So that was. I think I'm done with my pullback.
I love that.
I want to get into talking about this musical.
Child, let's get into
this movie.
I want to get into this movie.
Things. So before we start talking about this movie, did you saw the musical?
Yes, I've seen it twice.
And I think we've talked about this before, but how did you feel about the musical?
Girl, I was underwhelmed. I'm not even going to lie. I'm not even going to mess with you.
I was not one of the Wicked girlies.
No. And I think it was not fair because I had also seen this during the time. I remember when Hamilton was blowing up and everybody like, you need to go see this. And that kind of ignited I'm starting to go into Broadway. I want to see all the shows now. I saw Hamilton, and it's not that I was comparing it to. I was like, oh, I think I'm really getting my theater bug going. So I'm like, okay, show me all the fabulous shows. You got to go see Wicked. You got to go see Wicked. So I'm looking at Wicked. I'm looking at Tina. I'm looking at, like I said, Hamilton, and I go in because it's like it's Wicked. I know it's going to be fabulous. It got, what's the homegirl in it? Adina. What's her name?
Adina Menzel.
Her too.
And Kristen Chenoweth.
And her too. Okay. So I'm like, oh, let's go. Child, I was asleep. I was bored.
And you know what? So I love Kristen Chenoweth. I think
Period.
Kristen Chenoweth is hilarious.
She can't do no wrong.
I'm about like Adina Menzel.
Well, her voice is nasty good.
I've never been, even from Rent, I've never been like Adina Menzel
I'm about to pass out.
You're
not about to do this.
She just doesn't do it for me.
Oh, she do it for me, baby. She sends me every time, honey. That big old mouth.
But I will say her performance in Wicked was one of the best performances because I saw the original cast. I happen to be working a theater camp, a very bougie theater camp for kids where
I'm judging you.
This particular camp would get the kids theater tickets, and they would see throughout this camp. I think it was like a 16-week camp, something like that.
Damn, how many shows did they see? Like all of them?
They saw 4 shows.
Damn.
So they saw a show every 4 weeks.
I ain't mad at none of that.
And one of the shows we saw was Wicked.
Okay, so wait a minute. What you think of it?
I was not a fan. Like, I remember, like, a lot of my kids were like, oh, this was amazing. I think a lot of it had to do with, like, seeing Elphaba fly across the audience. And it did have that, like, dramatic feel. I did enjoy Popular, but I wasn't a big fan of, like, all of the music. It was good, but it wasn't like
it didn't change my life.
It wasn't life changing for me.
No.
It did the being other, being teased for being different, didn't really hit for me because it just be like, I think because of the cast, and I think because of the people that were within the cast, I think it felt like we were talking about like kids being bullied at school, or something, and it felt like, okay, all right, this feels like, you're trying to teach kids not to bully. It wasn't hitting me the larger theme,
No.
at that point in time. But let me tell you, honey,
What, girl?
when I went to this movie theater.
Okay, so that's different. Girl, that's different.
When I went to this movie theater and saw Cynthia Erivo in these micro braids and this green skin and these freckles and get in here and walk. Now, they played things very differently in the movie that they did in the musical.
Yes. And so we should tell friends, right, who are interested to see this one, this is not a spoiler-free episode. We about to go in.
We about to spoil all of it.
Okay.
So if you listen, pause, come back to this episode later. Right. If you have not seen Wicked, girl, what you waiting on?
Right.
2, you can come back and listen to this afterwards.
Because we about to go.
Because we're going to go in. We're going to talk about it beat by beat. We're going to get all of this in.
Okay. So I felt like the show, I would say this really quickly about the stage play. I didn't hate it. When I say underwhelmed, I was expecting, because we're talking about these leads, these women who are powerhouses in Broadway, right? Very prominent stars. It felt like moments. Mm-hmm. Like, here's a moment over here, and then it jumped to a different moment over here. And I think it relied heavily on our nostalgia and us understanding just the Wizard of Oz in general. Right. And I'm not mad about that, but it still felt disjointed. I just felt like I was listening to a bunch of different songs set in the universe of Oz, if you will, about the witches being besties. Like, I got it. I did not leave here I didn't leave that theater like, oh my God. Now, that movie, and so what I did was, somebody said you should just really read the book if you really are trying to understand Wicked. And they're right. But the problem is, once I read the book, I was into this book.
The book is much darker.
It's way darker.
Yeah.
And essentially,
the book, how the book ends is different.
I would essentially call, and I don't want to give it away because we ain't even got to part 2, but essentially I felt like Elphaba was like an activist. Like, it's very different.
That's exactly.
And it's very fleshed out. And I was into this. I was like, this book is hot. Like, this is what I wanted to see on that stage. However, that movie hit it, though.
That movie brought that Elphaba as an activist,
oh Lord,
like, home for us.
Yes.
It definitely brought that. So, all right. So what the first thing that hit me about this movie was, so when the movie, when they have the backstory, and then the first time that Elphaba steps into Shiz University.
Chills. Come on, keep going.
Okay, so in the musical, it's more like it's this regular place, and then you drop this green girl, and the green girl is the joke. Mm-hmm. And then when you watch this particular music, they're singing, they're dancing, they're all over the place, and Elphaba, who is this very poised young woman that happens to be green,
very pulled together,
walks her pulled together self in there with her sister and her father, and is like, what are y'all doing? What is happening?
Yes.
And like, they're the joke. I like that. I was like, that this is that you put us on notice that all of this is happening
it's
around
just spectacle
us. This spectacle, this stuff. This is what's not real. This is what's weird.
Yes.
Okay.
And I felt like that's very true to life, because I think a lot of times as people of color, like, we see the world very differently, and we carry ourselves because we see it differently. So when we out here, I ain't trying to be funny, white people be white people, and we be like, what the hell are y'all doing?
So, right.
And I got that energy from that whole time. They're like, what are y'all doing?
What I like
y'all dancing and splitting and screaming.
Right.
And what the hell?
The idea of Elphaba being othered, I did not feel that connection from the musical, but from the movie.
From jump.
And watching her come into that space, I immediately connected to, I've been here. I've walked into that ultra white space and have had to put everybody on notice, like, okay, so what we not going to do
is this.
is this.
And as she's go ahead.
Right. Like, let's get this out the way. No, I did not eat any sea moss. No, I'm not seasick. No, I did. And I was like, yes, because this is what we do.
Yeah, this character who Elphaba's literally like the embodiment of, like, you can tell I work twice as hard, I move twice as fast.
Honey.
Like, how can we not relate to that?
Honey.
And so what all this stuff that y'all doing is out of pocket, and it's not, and it doesn't connect to me as I show up in this world as someone who feels like they have to do things 3 times better than everybody else around me in order to be seen just once. Like, it, yeah.
And then I can't talk about Cynthia Erivo's like real like channeling of Elphaba without addressing how Ariana stepped into Galinda.
Galinda. She from the E-Hood. Galinda. Don't do that.
I love, first of all, I've watched all the interviews. I love their friendship.
Period.
I love how they went into this and said, you know, they made a pact.
They said, we are going to give our best.
We're going to do our best. We're going to have each other's backs.
Period.
And they sat down, talked to each other's fears. Cynthia said, you know what I'm afraid of is, you know, me going in as this Black person coming into this space and me having to say no.
Mm-hmm.
And so Ariana was like, okay, you don't have to say all the no's.
You don't.
Sometimes you say a couple of no's, I say a couple of no's. We go back and forth. We stick together.
Yes.
And I was like, that's allyship, sis. That's what we supposed
Period.
to do.
On and off the screen, like, I can't tell you how proud I am of Ariana Grande. The way she shows up in this film, y'all, it is literally, like, I know we love our divas. And I put her in that category because I think that she is. And even though if you saw the trailers, you're like, oh, she's just playing herself. She's not.
She's not. Yo.
At all.
Ariana Grande, I knew she was funny, but she acted a goddamn fool.
She's hilarious.
She was hilarious. The choices that, like Kristen Chenoweth, comic genius.
Yeah.
But Ariana came in there and did her own Galinda.
Yes, the choices she made with her body, like, it was like, if you know anything about Glinda, like, it was stiff, but it was still fluid.
Mm-hmm. And then like the different emphasis on different words on how she, like, they're very classic phrases that are from the musical that she would be like, she would change it because she was like, I'm going to approach this different. And I was just like, yes, I get it, sis.
Yes. And can we just mention, so we got him these vocals. Like,
these vocals,
even if there was a song that wasn't your favorite,
insane,
are stupid.
I've never been like let me listen to all the music from Wicked. Like, I've liked Popular, but I haven't been like playing Popular and repeat. I've heard Defying Gravity, and I've heard different singers sing it. And first of all, hold on. Before I get into that,
what?
Now we're talking about vocals. Let me tell you what these movie nerds over here at Alamo Drafthouse did when I went to go watch this movie.
What'd they do?
I got there early before the movie started, before they started doing previews. Before they started doing previews, you know, Alamo puts their own like archival documentary stuff together when it comes to like large properties or huge franchises. They'll go back and they'll show you all the different things. So they showed you all the different like clips from Wizard of Oz and like all the different versions of Wizard of Oz, the cartoon versions, television shows. There's The Wiz. They showed all these different clips.
That's cool.
And it was cute. The last little compilation they put together was every woman that's ever sung
Defying Gravity,
famously, starting from Idina Menzel all the way to like Amber Riley.
Oh, that's cute.
They had all these different famous women singing Defying Gravity, and they clipped it together and had it going back and forth and made this beautiful montage because then when I finally got to Defying Gravity, I said, Alamo Drafthouse, y'all ain't shit, because y'all said we want you to hear everybody else that sung it, because girl, you about to hear Cynthia sing this. And when I tell you
Cynthia sang like that rent was due, baby, the rent, the car note, the lights
they're-
about to get cut off, honey. That gas bill is right now.
The way their voices blended was
It's stupid.
insane.
No.
The way their voices blended, the way they complemented each other. So I also saw in an interview and also read that Ariana Grande cuts all of her own vocal tracks.
She's a vocal editor. She's like a self-vocal editor. Like, she don't need nobody in the studio saying, do this note, do that note.
She does it herself.
Yep.
And then it got to the point that she was like, I'm going to do some references. And I'll put, so when she put together, Cynthia said it got to the point that she didn't trust anybody else to do her vocal references except Ariana.
Because she could. Like, the fact that she was like, okay, what do you want? She would give her like Cynthia 3 or 4 versions, okay, of a section. And she did it in multiple sections of one song. Cynthia would pick out, I like the A version here, the B version here, the C version here. And then the very next day, Ariana come in and she just sing it as if like, I got it. Like, she just glued it all together herself. It's effing brilliant.
And Cynthia would like, I had some ideas. I hope she likes it. And she was like, Cynthia said it got to the point was like, she didn't even need to ask me.
She didn't even need to ask.
She was like, I trust you, girl. Just give me what you got.
It was like, so I just want to put that stamp on that. Like, the singing alone is worth seeing this film. Because you're watching two masterful vocalists humble themselves and create music that I don't think we're going to hear in ways. I don't think we're going to hear it like that again.
John Chu.
Oh my God!
Amazing job with
oh my God.
Creating this entire universe. They spent a lot of money on building
and
this
make
set.
it safe and made it safe for these people. He didn't just direct this film; he made it safe for your main characters and your main actors, and I think almost everyone in the show to feel as if they could be whatever they needed to be to show up in that space. That's not easy.
John gave them room to make the decisions that they made. Cynthia attributes John with giving her all of the things that she needed, like making the choices about the micro-braids, making the choices about the nails and the freckles, because she didn't want to disappear behind green paint.
Which... brilliant. I didn't even think about it like that.
She was like,
but she could have.
She very easily could have just disappeared behind the green paint.
And then that would have been it.
And we would have, we could have put any woman into that role, but she wanted to make sure that who she was.
She didn't want to be Fiona.
She wanted to make sure that who she was as a black woman, like, shone through.
And it did so perfectly.
It's so good. And so John gave them room. John listened to them about Ariana fought for Bowen Yang to be in this movie.
I heard about that. I had no idea.
Yeah, they were very pushy. They said they wanted a lot of things. Once they got casted, they was like, these are the things that we wanted. They pushed for Michelle Yeoh.
Academy Award winner Michelle Yeoh, let's be clear.
The choreography was insane.
Oh, my God. Like, what the hell was that? This was like some West Side, not even West Side Story. Like, if you love a sweeping moment where, like, the ensemble, like, the whole city is just dancing, it was so gorgeous.
Choreography was so gorgeous. It was so great. It was so insane.
The costume designs did not miss.
And I did not know Jonathan Bailey could dance like that.
I didn't either.
And I saw several interviews. They were like, there's no doubles. The flip, all of that stuff, that's all.
Shut up.
That's all Jonathan Bailey doing.
Damn.
He's doing all of that dancing himself.
I had no idea.
That is him.
I just assumed. Girl.
They were like, that is him. And I was like, you better dance. You better come through. And just a little side tidbit. I don't know if anybody has noticed it or ever talked about it, because no one's ever asked them about this in interviews. But Jonathan Bailey and Cynthia Erivo both got their television start on the same show in the UK.
Shut up.
They both started on a show called Chewing Gum.
That's right. Shut up. I'm about to smack Roger up in this damn studio. That's right.
Yeah, both of them had their television.
I love Chewing Gum. Chewing Gum was so funny.
Both had their television debut on Chewing Gum.
I am blown away. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, and I was
That's great.
Does anybody remember this?
Okay. So do you have a favorite like it moment in this movie?
Oh, absolutely.
Like what's the one? Like
I'm gonna try to tell you about it without crying.
Come
Because
on.
I cried in the movie theater.
come on. I know cuz yeah, see let's see if it matches mine cuz I don't know.
The ballroom. That ballroom scene.
Say
That
more.
ballroom scene. So, Elphaba is set up. She comes to the ballroom, comes to this party with all these high hopes of being accepted and being able to be normal, and got invited, and then realizes she has been set up. And yet she comes to do what she came to do anyway.
Any damn way.
She said, I'm going to do the things I promised myself to do. Like, she doesn't say that, but in her body, in her movement, that moment of, just as a Black queer man, and I'm sure so many Black women can relate to this, I know that feeling. Like, we know that feeling of walking in and knowing you've been set up.
Like, there's a moment in there where you can see her, when you mention her body, like she takes that breath that we've all taken.
Like I'm not gonna let y'all see me cry.
Yes.
Ooh.
And like you see, and when she exhales, it's like she's swallowing every tear.
I said, she was like, I'm gonna go ahead. And I was like in tears. 'Cause I was like, yes, I have felt this. And that ballroom scene does not play the same way in the stage play.
No, no.
It looks weird and goofy.
It's apples and oranges. Like, it don't even compare.
But when she did that, what she did with that moment, anybody that's ever been in that moment where you walked into that ultra white space or that heteronormative space or that ableist space, and you walked in thinking that things were going to be different, or someone has offered you a what's the word, an olive branch, or
And by the way, she wasn't here for the olive branches, y'all.
she was.
I felt like once she made that decision in the ballroom, it was up and it was stuck.
Right. Once she got in there, she was like,
"That's what we do. This is where we're at.
This is where we at."
I don't need your olive branches no more.
She was like, "This is where we at," and she swallowed it and went in there, and then that is Galinda's realization: I'm an asshole.
Yep. Oh my God. Yeah. Which I think Ariana held that perfectly.
She did. That moment when they're like talking about,
she's like, "Oh, I'm the cunt."
They'd be like, "Oh, she doesn't
yes.
care. She doesn't think about. She didn't care about what anybody thinks." She's like, "Of course she does. She just pretends that she doesn't." And I was like,
Okay. May I? So my moment. Sorry, I got on that ballroom scene because, my moment. It's going to be towards the end. I think a lot of people have that moment where we see Elphaba flying for the first time, but it wasn't just that. It's when she bursts through the glass, and there's this moment where she's just falling, and she's looking at her reflection, and that reflection is the young Elphaba,
her young self.
Y'all, the imagery of here after all of that, this Elphaba's just falling, right? There is no guarantee, and she's seeing herself as she's falling, and they reach for each other, and like the girl in the little girl in the reflection and an adult Elphaba outside, and as they're about to touch, here comes the broom, like she grabs the broom, and then she's like off and up. I lost it immediately because one, also flying through the air always made sense for me when I saw a witch and a broom. And it takes it and does, if you remember, anybody who's seen Harry Potter, yes, they're flying on broomsticks, but the way this was captured, I felt the heaviness of the wind. I felt like it was moving through her, and you see this look of just resolute empowerment and resolve on Elphaba's face, I am here, and she's gripping this broom, and she's off, and then you see the cape just go Doctor Strange on us, and you literally, I feel like I'm watching this woman just come into her glory and come into her own, and even the way the glass tears away from her, it's like she's tearing away from everything, shattering it all, and she only comes up to, quote unquote, no cliche, meant defying gravity is because the acceptance of all parts of her. I completely lost it.
Yo, there's so many.
Completely lost it.
There's so many moments in this movie that really takes what Gregory Maguire's original intention for the story, really brings it forward in this movie in ways that the musical did not.
Yeah.
Like with the professor, I can't remember the professor, the goat's name.
No,
it'll come to me. But when he flipped over that chalkboard and saw it, and I was like, oh, that might as well be the N word on there. That's basically what it was.
It was a slur.
It was a slur. You basically saw, animals should be seen and not heard.
Mm-hmm. I said, oh, okay, that's what we doing? Like, that's what we doing?
Oh. There's so many of those moments. Talking about that, like Cynthia flying and then seeing herself, a younger self in the reflection. I read somewhere that Cynthia is talking about Karis Masongale, the young actress that plays young Elphaba, came to set early one day, and she was actually doing her flying. Cynthia was doing her flying that day, and Karis had actually come early, and she said, "Hey, do you want to see me fly?" And she was like, "Yeah, I want to watch you fly." And so she sat her down, she sat at a table, and then she did the scene. As she flew past her, she heard Karis go, "Whoa." And she immediately was like, "That's what all of this is for."
See, I'm about to cry right now. Like, I can't even handle that.
She immediately was like, "That's what all of this is for."
Oh, God.
For this little girl and other little girls like her to see themselves fly.
I can't even.
Yeah.
I can't even. And now it made sense to me, y'all. I hope this episode, I hope you can hear our earnesty in this episode, because it made more sense to me when I was watching videos and like Cynthia and Ariana just getting choked up.
Right.
Because
I was like, all of the internet was like, "Is the cast of Wicked all right?
Are they okay? Right? Are you okay?" They keep crying.
They was crying all the time.
And every question is like, "So how do you feel now that the movie's been out?" And it's like, I'm like, why are they always crying? Now I'm like,
now I get it.
Now I
understand. I was like, they put a lot of themselves. This was like 2 or 3 years of their lives.
Yes. Poured into
rehearsing. Ariana was like, there was an interview with Kelly Clarkson, and Kelly Clarkson was like, "We were doing a voice together, and you were going backstage and like singing opera and practicing all of this opera." She was like, "Yeah, I got to practice because I'm doing Wicked. I'm doing Wicked,
and I ain't about to mess this up."
She was like, and they would be doing like stuff like they have been preparing for this forever. And then like Jonathan Bailey talks about how who had the most grueling schedule was Cynthia, because Cynthia, on top of all of their rehearsing, their shooting, all of that, she had like 3 hours of makeup. When on shoot days, Cynthia probably had like 5 hours to herself at home a day.
She was dedicated to it.
Like she was working herself to like the bone.
I need every award. She need every award.
What's Broadway gonna do? Because Elphaba gotta be black from now on. What we gonna do, Broadway?
And don't you put no little blue-eyed blonde girl, no micro-braids. We will burn that damn stage to the ground. Like, don't even play with me like that.
Elphaba gotta It just won't play right if you don't. It does not have the same.
Well, unless she got like a Kelly Clarkson voice. Like I need her to like.
I'm emotionally a black woman has to be Elphaba from now on. It has
she took it, she owned it, and she peed all over Elphaba.
Like you're not gonna see Wicked the same way ever again.
I wanted to be queer too. I'm like, I need to be a black girl. I need to be queer too, because all of that was in there. All of that showed up. Oh my God.
It was such a great interpretation. I love how we can take this metaphor of the Black Witch and like really add seasoning to it, is what we always do.
Yeah.
Wicked has never been this good.
Point blank, period. I absolutely agree. Wicked has never been this good.
Because if you loved Wicked before, you love it even more now.
Yeah, like you in.
And if you did not like Wicked, you're in.
obviously y'all know I'm in the comic books like that, but when you get to heroes and villains, it's just a matter of perspective. And the way this movie does it, it's like I'm going to show you fully and completely a different perspective.
It really,
you will not walk away thinking about the Wicked Witch of the West the same again.
It really shows you governments can create narratives to to drive their own agenda and villainize people or drive their own agenda. But at the same time, it also shows Elphaba story is the story of a black woman.
Yes.
It is the story of a woman who has all the power, is more qualified than anybody else that's there.
Point blank period.
Know what? When she said to the Wiz, "You have no real power."
You have no real.
I said, girl, that moment when you realize none of y'all know what
you
you're
ain't
doing.
shit. I looked at you. Really ain't shit.
That moment they done vetted you for 300 times over and over to get into the job or get into this position, and then you show up and realize, oh, y'all don't know what you're doing
at all.
Oh, I gotta manage the people that are managing.
But you still, and even though they now know that they ain't about shit, y'all still trying to confine me.
They trying to gaslight her.
Like literally, y'all trying to gaslight me to the point where I'm gonna leap out of this window and show y'all. Like the point where you saw Glenda look up. Wait, she doing all this and how she got all this power? I ain't even got no power yet. You don't.
Ari, I don't know this woman. I think Ariana Grande,
you know her,
did a great job of, sorry, white ladies, dragging the hell out of y'all. Like, she really used that role to drag y'all and really show, like, yes, I'm friends with you, but yet I'm unable to tear myself away from the fabric of what I know to be my life and my being. I can see that this is wrong, but also at the same time, I don't want you to turn everything upside down. If you just come back and apologize and explain,
say it.
I'm sure they'll understand.
Like the story of the challenge of allyship. I think that's what Glenda really shows you, like how much of a struggle it is to show up for people, knowing when that other person needs that support and they deserve that support, but because it could upend what you know to be comfortable.
She wasn't ready.
And it's like, yes, and that's exactly what it looks like when somebody who says, so now when we get into conversations and like people want to call themselves an ally, and I'm like, you got to be careful with that statement.
Because you don't.
Because what happens when the rubber meets the road?
Because being an ally means that you put yourself in danger as well.
Exactly, because love is an action, my friend.
You are the one. And so when Elphaba is like, you coming with me?
Oh, that part.
They coming with me, and I was like, y'all know Glenda wasn't about that life.
I know she wasn't about that.
She wasn't about that life. She wasn't about that life. She said, "Girl, it's cold outside. Let me get you."
I said, "Oh."
Let me go get you a coat. Hold on. Hold on. Take this and put this around your neck. Cover your.
It's gonna make you rethink who that house should have fell on top of.
Okay. I am a new fan.
Absolutely a new fan.
I'm a new fan of this. I can't wait what they do with the second part because they split the musical, which I thought was really smart. To split the musical into.
At first, I was like, they just gonna drag this out, but I love what they did, so I'm shutting up.
They ended where Act 1 ends in the musical.
Yeah.
And then they're gonna continue with another movie, and I think it was so smart because it's a shift in the story. So it's, I think John Cho talks about part 1 is about choices and part 2 is about the consequences of those choices.
Oh, I love that.
Is to make choices takes a lot of bravery, and to stay in choices is a lot harder. Like, why defend a home that doesn't want you there?
God.
I was like, ooh, John Cho, you get it. Did I say John Cho? I'm sorry.
You get it. I think they were up against some challenges that, again, you have women leading this cast. It's about magic, and you have women of color who's leading this at a time where it's not released during the best time for movies to come out. And it is literally $1 billion project. I mean, $1 billion profit project. It's just there. It's gonna hit there. And that's amazing. And and that's a testament to just how good, quality-wise, regardless if you like musicals or not, it is well done, it is thought out, and it's queer-coded, black-coded, misogyny, like punching in the face coded.
Respectability
politics is all there. And I can't say enough about this film. I love its impact that it's having on culture. I can't wait for Halloween.
Oh, to see all of these Elphabas?
All these Elphabas, all these little black Elphabas with their micro-braids.
These little baby Elphabas. I want to leave brunchers, I want you to leave you guys with different options to keep your Black Witch tastes going.
Ooh, hit them real quick.
We've all talked about Agatha all along.
Mm-hmm.
Sashir Zamata, I always stumble on her name. Sashir Zamata is a part of the cast. Her storyline is Jennifer Kale, who originally was white in the comic book. Her character now is a Black woman. Oh, gosh.
Who's a high priestess. And for those of you who are comic book nerds, her character is first cousins to the Ghost Rider.
Oh, yes.
So, which is a huge character in Marvel. And that's already there's rumors that she may show up again in future installments because eventually they'll bring back Ghost Rider. But yeah, they're literally family.
Yo,
she's great.
And her role throughout this whole series, that's another taking the witch metaphor and making having a whole different meaning as a Black woman.
Absolutely.
She was the only one that was telling y'all, Agatha's setting us up, y'all.
From jump.
She was right the entire time.
The entire front.
She was right the entire time and was struggling she was without, even though none of them had power, she was still the most competent witch there.
But just her mind, she was saving. Okay, yes.
And at the end of it, nobody saved her. She saved herself.
Yes, she
did. She got her own.
She did.
Back. All right. So, and then there is a great series. I think you're gonna have to go to AME or you can go to Amazon Prime. There's a great series called Domino Day, Lone Witch.
Yes, come on. How do you know? Oh my God, I'm so impressed.
I love this series. We already mentioned American Horror Story Coven.
Go back and rewatch it, honey.
There is another season where of American Horror Story where they skip a couple of seasons and they come back to the characters from Coven.
I forgot which one that was.
I can't remember which one that was, but then Billy Porter's in that one.
Yes.
And it's the end of the world and all the witches.
Is it Apocalypse? Not Apocalypse.
Is it Apocalypse?
Maybe.
I think it may be. But all the queer there's a whole coven of queer men.
Yes.
So there's all this queerness that's in it, and I was like, oh, this is so good. So you want to try to check out those two American Horror Stories. Of course, you want to get back to Light as a Feather, Stiff as a Board, Light as a Feather, Stiff as a Board.
The Craft.
Yes, there you go.
Check out The Craft. Yes, I was like Light as a Feather, Stiff as a Board.
Check out The
Craft. Vampire Diaries is good. I know Witcher, they're doing another one. There's some great. Actually, the two main witches in The Witcher are Black. Check that out. I think is that Netflix?
Yes.
I think they're doing another season of that.
And if you guys have any stories about Black witches that you want us to check out or you want us to suggest, drop us a line in our Instagram. You can check us out on IG at Brunch Blaze Babble.
Yes.
And you can follow us on the same handle on TikTok.
Yes.
Leave us a message.
Please do.
But I think that's all we have time for today.
Yes, it's been a lovely episode, Defying Gravity with y'all.
So, what do you want to tell the people?
I want to tell them, listen, y'all, be good at it, and fly high, boo.
And I want you to know that you are enough just as you are. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.